Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Teamsters Canada webinar. We cannot start this webinar without acknowledging the contribution of all workers during this pandemic, especially the Teamsters members who have been on the front line from the very beginning and worked tirelessly to provide services to the Canadian population. Le mois d'octobre est le mois de l'histoire des femmes. Nous voulions donc vous proposer un webinaire qui rend hommage aux femmes, les femmes Teamsters. Nous avons un panel de 5 femmes inspirantes, dévouées et intelligentes, des femmes fortes comme vous, qui travaillent au sein de notre organisation pour aider les travailleurs et les travailleuses à obtenir une meilleure qualité de vie et qui sont également de ferventes défenseuses des droits des femmes. We all agree that COVID-19 has had a major impact on all of us. Women especially have felt the social and economic effects of this pandemic. We often bear the responsibility of our children's education with the schools being closed or learning being done online, and we care for our aging parents. Women earn generally less than men, and during this pandemic, more women have seen their working hours cut or have simply lost their jobs and have not been reinstated. These are only some of the effects caused by the pandemic. The pandemic is a serious threat to gender equality, and we need to make sure we don't lose what we have worked for so hard. That is why women need to be visible. We need to take our place, get involved, and speak up, make our voices heard. I hope that the women on the panel will inspire you and give you the motivation to rise up and be the change you wish to see. So let's start by meeting these amazing Teamsters women. We will begin with Mariam Abou Dib. She's the new Director of Government Affairs at Teamsters Canada.
Okay, so thank you very much, Nathaly. My name is, as you said, Mariam Abou Dib, and I am the Director of Government Relations for Teamsters Canada. And that means I get to lobby our federal government on behalf of Teamster members to ensure that our experience and our voices are actually reaching the ears of the politicians on Parliament Hill. I live in Ottawa, the nation's capital, and I'm a member of Teamsters Local 91. I've been a trade union activist for over 20 years, probably something like 25 years, and I have been working officially for the labor movement for the last 20. I'm a single mom of 2 fabulous gifts of offspring, my 21-year-old daughter, Yafa, and my 16-year-old son, Mazen. And a few personal notes: I am a fitness buff, and I love single malt scotch, and I'm a hiker who loves heights, and I write prose, I write poetry in my spare time, and I do have one weakness, and that one weakness is red Skittles.
Thank you, Mariam. Our next participant is Lena Phenix. Lena is a business agent at Local 879 in Ontario. Welcome, Lena.
Thanks, Nathaly. It's good to see you and everyone else on the panel. I appreciate the opportunity, as always. My name is Lenna Phenix. I began my journey with the Teamsters back in 1995, I believe it was. My youngest son was 3, and we saw the benefits of being a Teamster with the drivers and the mechanics at the trucking company that I worked for. And the women in the office were very much undervalued and underappreciated. So we changed that with the help of the Teamsters. And from there, I was so thankful for everything the Teamsters did for me then and continue to do, that I got involved everywhere I could. So I started with the Teamsters, I attended my membership meetings, started with the Teamsters Ontario Women's Caucus. Then I was a trustee on the Local 879 board, got hired on as a business agent 4 years ago, and now again, the recording secretary, a little over a year ago, appointed as recording secretary for my local as well. So busy. I also raised 2 fantastic sons, 30 and 28 years old now. And I have 2 little boys, grandchildren, Owen and Hugo. they're the cutest little things, the 6 and 3. And yeah, I'm quite blessed to be a grandma. I'm married to my husband, who's been awfully supportive through all of my endeavors. And how long have we been married? We've been together for 23 years, married about half of that. I think 11 years now. So yeah, I love dogs. That's my favorite personal thing. I love my dogs, and we lost our 2 old dogs a year ago and 2 years ago, and debated whether or not to do another one. Thought, hey, you know what? I don't know if I want to take care of anything anymore. But it's just not in my nature not to. So we of all things got a Siberian Husky, and they're full of energy, and she's just a delight. I love her. She's 10 months old now, and got me up off the couch. So I'm not a exercise buff. I hate it, but I love spending time with my kids and my grandkids and my dog. So it's nice to get up and go moving again, and feels good. It's always I need that clearing of the head every once in a while. So I think that's about it for me. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Look forward to the panel.
Thank you, Lena. Next is Fernanda Santos. She's the president of Local 847 in Ontario. Welcome, Fernanda.
Thank you, Nathalie. Ladies, always a pleasure to see you. President of 847, that's the business aspect. Recording Secretary, Joint Council number 52. Vice President for the International Women's Caucus. And I'm with the Teamsters Canada Executive Board also. So what is important to note is that I'm the first woman in the Teamsters organization to hold those seats. I became a Teamsters by default. My first job in Canada, so I'm Portuguese. My second language is French because I was raised in France. And I've been in Canada longer than those 2 countries together. So on a good day, I'll be speaking the 3 languages together and all of them correctly, so that you know. And I started my first job in Canada was at the airport with this screening company there. Way back then, this was like 1984, so it was a long time ago. So in 2005, I became a union rep, and I never looked back since then.
Any personal stuff you want to share with us? Would you like personally or?
Personally, I said I'm Portuguese born. I'm married. I've been married to Marcel for 40 years completed. And we have 3 sons. My first one is 39. I keep remembering how old I am every time I think of his age. And I have a step-granddaughter, and I have 3 Siberian Huskies. Other than that, I think that just pretty much says about personal life. There is, you know, when you're married to the same guy for 40 years, there is much happening. So there you go.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you.
Also with us, we have Laura Hasulo. She is local chair citywide division 390 from the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Natalie. I don't have as impressive a resume as the rest of the women do here. I've been with the railroad, with CN Rail, as a conductor since 1986. I became slightly involved in the union in Toronto as a health and safety rep. And then when I transferred to Windsor, I became the shop steward in 2008 and have been that since. I also am an organizer. I've done some organizing with Teamsters Canada, and I've done organizing for the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference, which is the branch of Teamsters that I work for. I love everything about being a Teamster. I love everything about activism. I do a lot of volunteering in my community. My husband and I love to travel. We like to do it a little unconventionally. We go to Europe and we just rent a car and just take off and discover whatever we can discover and go wherever we can go. We love to hike. I have 3 stepdaughters. Our middle one just had a baby 5 months ago, so I'm a step grandma as well. And I have dogs, and I'm babysitting our daughter's cat right now. I did have a house full of animals, but lost a bunch of them in the last year, but I still have my 2 dogs. And I love people, places, things, food, wine, everything. I love life. And I'm just thankful to be part of this, thankful to be part of the Teamsters organization. And the most fulfilling thing is helping people when they're in trouble, helping people who have problems. And that's the best part of being part of a labor organization. We're there for people when they need it. And that's about it.
This is great. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. La dernière et non la moindre, Sylvie Duval, qui est permanente syndicale au local 106 au Québec. Donc, bienvenue, Sylvie.
Bonjour, merci Nathalie. Bon, mais c'est ça. Moi, je suis une fière membre depuis 1992. J'ai été déléguée syndicale pour la section locale 106 de 92 à 2005. Je suis arrivée au local 106 en 2005 lors du départ d'une consoeur qui faisait comme moi, parce que moi, je représente du transport de personnes. C'est ma spécialité. J'ai quelques 2-3 autres usines à part le transport de personnes, mais je suis vraiment concentrée dans le transport de personnes, le transport par autobus. Je suis maman d'un grand garçon de 30 ans, puis bientôt grand-maman, mais bientôt dans à peu près 8 mois grand-maman. C'est ça. Puis c'est ça, je travaille principalement dans le transport de personnes. Je suis, pour mon local, depuis peu, secrétaire archiviste. Puis c'est ça, c'est un petit peu ce qui me représente.
Ben, merci beaucoup, Sylvie.
Merci.
Now, sisters, we are all union activists at different levels, and there are many women in our organization who are shop stewards. What led you to get involved in the labor movement, become a leader? Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à vous impliquer dans le mouvement syndical, à devenir une leader? So we can start with Mariam, maybe. Mariam?
Sure. Thanks, Nathalie. That's a great question. And for me, I could tell you that from a very young age, I think, and probably it's very similar with the esteemed panelists, that there was always some sort of draw to fairness and justice in our environment. I think in order to become an agent of change, and being a leader doesn't necessarily mean that you hold a position or something like that, but that you actually take action to change something, that we saw or experienced or felt some level of injustice. And whether we saw it in someone that we cared about, or in our environment, or that we experienced it ourselves. And I think for myself, it started at a very young age in a traditional family where, our roles were very defined, and it was about what is a girl, and what is the appropriate action that, or the appropriate path that a girl should take, and definitely being admonished for questioning that path, because it was like, well, what if I don't want to do that? What if I want to do this? And why can't a girl do this or that? So I think in terms of what led me to get involved, it was essentially the witnessing and the experiencing of injustice, whether it was sexism, whether it was racism, or whether it was, seeing someone's rights being trampled on, or someone not having access to their rights. I think my experience over the last 20 some years has always shown that I was drawn to being part of a collective that wanted to make change.
That was a great answer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lenna, now, how about you?
Yeah, so my story is similar in nature of the injustices, and I guess it started with, in my family was not defined roles. I had a mother who was a trailblazer. She was the one who was the main income provider. She was a single mom for a while, and then met my stepfather, actually knew him in high school and reconnected with him later, and he was part of our lives since I was 5 years old. Everyone in our household did everything. We had a brother 10 years younger, but all the girls, we knew just as well how to change a prop on an outboard as we did to cut the grass, as we did to make dinner and do the dishes and laundry. So everybody, there was no traditional roles within my family. And because my mother was who she was, I had this rosy glass view of life, of what it was going to be like when I grew up, and I could do anything. I mean, even TV told me as a woman that girls can do everything a guy can do, a boy can do. And then I went off to college, and I went into the field of the youth and service worker as I loved psychology. I wanted to help people. And my first year there, I found I struggled financially to continue on that path. It was a 3-year course, less than a police officer. A police officer was a 2-year course, 3-year course in college, and it paid half of what a police officer would pay when you got out. I would be just above minimum wage, and I would have 3 years of college debt. So in the 360 interview, which again was new to me, the 360 interview when I was leaving college, they said, I completed 1 year. They said, why are you leaving? And I said, well, I gave them the argument. There, 3 years of college to get out and make minimum, I can make more money finding a job doing something else, And she said, these were her words to me. She said to me, I hate to admit this, but until more men get into this field, you will not see that wage come up. That was my first slap of reality of what it was like as equality for women in the workplace. Then I was hired on as for payroll in the trucking company of Sharon Transport. I did other odd jobs, and then when I landed this job at 22, which became my career for 28 years, same thing. We watched the men, predominantly men. There was only one woman truck driver, no women mechanics within that trucking company, and we watched them every 3 years, go to the table, negotiate what they wanted, and come out knowing where their path would be for the next 3 years. It took us 5 years, and we couldn't get our boss to the table for an increase. We used to be 5 people in the office, down to 3 doing the same work, and no increases, a smaller pension. Benefits were the same, but little of the fringe benefits started getting chipped away because they could change whatever they wanted. We said, I don't want to swear, but I do. F this. I'm calling the Teamsters. So I called, and we met with a man by the name of Gary Kitchen. He still works within the Teamsters today. He met with the 3 of us, and we signed our cards and paid our $5, and 30 some odd years later, here I am. We finally, it took us the last contract I negotiated, I was the steward the entire time. We finally got pay equity it was a slow chipping process, pay equity with the drivers. Our drivers were incredibly supportive, basically said to us, we couldn't do what you do. We appreciate you. They appreciated us more than I think management did. And they were so happy for us when we joined, and when we pushed every 3 years to gain and gain and gain and get where we needed to be. So we were incredible, and I worked very well with the stewards of the drivers and the mechanics, and here I am today. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did.
I can keep talking.
Thanks, Lena. Sylvie, qu'est-ce qui t'a amené à t'impliquer dans le mouvement syndical, à devenir une leader?
Bon, ben nous autres, quand on s'est syndiqué en 92, si on se rappelle à l'époque, moi j'étais chauffeur d'autobus scolaire à l'époque, c'est sûr qu'il n'y avait pas beaucoup de femmes, il n'y en avait pas autant qu'il y en a aujourd'hui dans le transport scolaire. Tu sais, aujourd'hui, c'est majoritairement féminin, mais dans le temps, on n'était pas autant. C'était un milieu qui était quand même où est-ce que les patrons nous traitaient pas d'égal à égal, justement. Là, moi, je me souviens, en 92, quand on s'est syndiqué, j'ai été congédiée. L'employeur s'est servi j'avais échappé du fioul à table, tout ça. L'employeur s'est servi de tout ça pour me congédier, pour faire peur aux autres. Il avait dit à l'époque à tous mes collègues de travail, je ne sais pas si tu as connu ça, Nathalie, dans ce temps-là, on avait des petits porte-clés jaunes avec des autobus dessus, puis c'était marqué Teamsters locale 106. L'employeur avait pris ça, il avait garoché ça sur la table de conférence, puis il nous avait dit, bon, mais il y en a qui ont fait rentrer ça ici, puis à l'époque, je pense qu'il pensait que je faisais partie des gens qui avaient fait signer les cartes, puis tout ça. Puis à l'époque, je peux juste te dire que je connaissais pas ça, un syndicat, puis je m'étais jamais servi d'un syndicat non plus, puis tout ça. Je faisais ma job, puis je faisais ce que j'avais à faire, puis c'est tout. Puis là, c'est ça. Là, quand il a su qu'il y avait une accréditation syndicale, ben c'est ça. Il m'a congédié. J'ai été environ 8 mois. Le local 106 m'avait représenté à l'époque, puis tout ça, puis j'ai été réintégrée après. Puis le fait d'avoir été réintégrée, ben c'est sûr que pour mes collègues de travail, j'étais la personne à mettre en place pour aller négocier une convention collective, puis pour faire face à l'employeur, parce qu'on n'avait vraiment pas un facile, là. Ce qui m'a vraiment amené là, c'est le désir de la justice, faire avancer la cause des femmes, parce que je trouvais ça complètement aberrant de voir que pendant 4-5 ans, je faisais 25 heures par semaine, puis j'avais pas droit à plus parce que j'étais une femme, parce que pour mon employeur, j'étais juste un deuxième salaire, puis j'avais pas besoin de plus. J'avais un conjoint à la maison pour s'occuper du restant. T'sais. Fait que c'était vraiment, mon désir à moi, c'était de faire avancer la cause des femmes, puis de faire du changement. Là, c'est ce qui m'a emmené là.
Wow, merci Sylvie. The words leadership or leader can sometimes feel a bit intimidating. Being a leader, as Mariam mentioned before, being a leader doesn't necessarily mean you have to be president or an MP or a mayor. You can be a leader in your community, a leader in your workplace. So my question now is it important that women occupy positions of leadership, and why? So Mariam, we can start with you.
Yes, of course, it's important that women occupy positions of leadership. And the reason is that no movement or organization can actually call themselves truly representative if the organizational structure, including and especially the leadership, doesn't reflect its membership and doesn't reflect the needs and the issues of its membership. So it won't work. It just won't. So while there are many progressive men in our movements that want to do the right thing, for example, the right thing has to include making space for women on leadership bodies. Space for women, for racialized people, for Indigenous people, for as a diverse space, these leadership spaces have to be representative, and it can only enhance our union or our movement or our organization's ability to do better when we're representing the experiences of our membership in our leadership structures. So women bring a different approach to leadership as well. Organizational culture has been based on a particular experience, a male experience. And so what does that mean for women when we enter those spaces. I think we contribute to making those spaces a lot more inclusive, a lot more caring. We contribute to a different approach to leadership. And again, I go back to, there's no way that an organization can truly call itself representative if women are not part of that structure.
I agree. Thank you, Mariam. Laura?
Well, Mariam made some of the points that I wanted to make. It's very true. The organization cannot consider itself representative if it doesn't represent everyone. And women do bring very different talents, very different innate things to a leadership role. Most women tend to be empathetic, tend to be nurturing. And so they bring these skills into leadership. They listen to people. They consider the humanity. They think more in a more caring way of how everyone can be working together. And that's exactly what I did when I got on the Health and Safety Committee. It was, I think, my being a woman that made a difference. As RBG said, women belong in all places where decisions are being made.
Great, Laura. Thank you. Fernanda.
Yes, the world needs woman leader for all the reasons that you know, my friends and sisters here have mentioned it, because we bring a different perspective to the workplace. We bring a different empathy to workers that are expecting, you know, and because we know how hard it is to stand on your feet for 9 hours, 10, 8, whatever the case may be, when you're carrying a little human being inside you. Men cannot empathize with that because they never did it, right? We can appreciate and respect a woman that, you know, went through domestic violence at home, and she can't come to work, and she shouldn't be punished or penalized. And as a leader, you can give her the break that she needs and help her through the process and be more empathetic. So women in positions of leadership can not only help a woman better, but can also encourage other women to step up. Women need to understand, again, that we are not second rate. We can do it. We can do it as good or better because we bring a different value, but not lesser value, to the role in the leadership position that you assume.
Thank you, Fernanda. Now, my next question is, as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? En tant que femme leader, quel a été l'obstacle le plus important dans votre carrière?
I think the biggest barrier, there's a couple of things. Of course, it's our own self-doubt. So you have to fight that inner voice when you first start, because nobody starts out as a union rep or becoming involved in the union knowing everything. It's a huge learning curve once you start. But also the misogyny and the old boys club mentality of some of the members, not the other leaders, some of the members. And the way that I found most satisfying to start getting over that barrier was to work really hard on some of the grievances or some of the issues of some of my biggest detractors, some of the biggest chauvinists. And when you would win it, and they would have to thank you, and they would have to acknowledge that perhaps I might be competent after all. That was one of the best things ever. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you. Now, Lena.
Okay, I would say that I had to give this a lot of thought, because although I've had a lot of challenges along the way and a lot of kind of hurdles and little hills to climb, I managed to do them. So I don't consider them barriers if I've, somehow successfully done them. But my biggest barrier, I think, along the way was time. I was, young when I first got involved, and I recognize this with many other women too. We often say this in our women's committee and trying to get women out. It's hard to find the time. I'm raising 2 young children. We were that sandwich generation. My parents are both not well. My grandmother's still alive at 101. Still helping with all of that as much as I can, even though I'm 3 hours away now. We're taking care of the house. We're taking care of the kids. We're taking care of our parents. We're going to work full time. We're volunteering where we can. We're involved in our community. We're involved in our union. And, and then I'm going to school. I remember studying for my HR stuff in the car at the arena in December. My kids are in hockey. So that was my biggest barrier, was time, and just I just kept going. You wake up that day and just do what you got to do and just keep going. But that I would say, I think that was my most significant barrier.
That's a good one. Thank you.
There is no question and no doubt that the biggest barrier for me is the fact that I am a woman, and the perception that this job is not a woman's job. And it took a long, long time, but like Laura said, for members, especially men, to trust you to represent them as good as men represented them in the past, or in this case, much better. Because you had to go into a world where historically representation was like the big guy with the big muscles. So you had to speak louder, you had to shout, louder, so that you could speak over the nonsense. So definitely being a woman and the perception that a woman in this job is not going to be effective, but here I am, and I would like to think that I'm pretty effective. So there you go, Laura. Pretty much the same thing.
Thank you, Fernanda. For the next question, if you were to start your union career now, what advice would you like to receive? Mariam?
Probably 3 things. The first thing would be always trust your intuition. Trust yourself. Don't constantly second guess yourself. It's not you that's the problem. It's however, you contribute to changing. You're the one that's going to contribute to making sure that those problems disappear, that you're going to resolve those problems. So that's the first thing. Trust your intuition. The second thing is you can't do this all by yourself. I think a lot of us women tend to feel like I think very much to the point that Fernanda was speaking earlier, we have to prove ourselves. We have to work twice as hard. We have to speak up louder. We have to somehow adopt, that male culture that exists in our movement in order to be heard. So resist that because the real solution is changing that. Not always adopting it. I know I had to do it in order to get in, but now as women in leadership positions, we have this opportunity to change that culture. So you can't do it alone, though. And I go back to that's the second thing. And then finally, the third thing would be never stop learning. Every day there is an opportunity to learn something new. It's true that for the most part, women don't have the same kind of ego men have. But I would never say that women don't have egos. And and I think it's really important that we be true to ourselves and continue to approach our work from a perspective of learning every day. And that is not weakness, that's a strength. So those would be the three things that I would say. Trust your intuition, you can't do it alone, and learn something every day.
Thank you, Mariam. Very good advice. Laura?
Okay, once again, Miriam, bang on. But I'm going to say basically somewhat like the same thing. You can't do it alone. And when you first start, or even to this day, make sure that you take advantage of the fact that you're part of a large organization. There's a wealth of knowledge within the Teamsters organization. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to call for clarification. Don't be afraid, period. Don't be afraid of making decisions. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. We learn when we make mistakes. Pick yourself up, learn from it, and move forward. Push on. Also, reading and learning every single day. Get to know your collective agreement. Get to know what it is that we're representing the people for, what we're fighting for, and what the company can do, what the company can't do. So knowledge is everything. And like Mariam said, just never stop learning. There's always, always, always an opportunity every single day to learn a little bit more than you knew yesterday. And that's it.
Oops. Thank you, Laura. Lena?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. I always encourage every woman I meet. I have, I try to connect as best I can. I encourage them to get more involved, get to know their local, get to know their union, get to know the women within it, get to know the men within it, the leadership within it. I just think it's so important if we learn to listen and watch how things go. Some things you're happy with, some things you learn and you fall in with, and other things, like we've often said, we can be that change. We don't like the way things are going, or we think it could be done a different way or tried a different way. So I think the biggest thing is watching and listening and learning. And I'm a talker, so it's hard for me, but I do watch, I do learn. I've learned a lot along the way. I've had plenty of people guide me, so I would suggest the same to others. You tap into that wealth of knowledge that's out there within the membership and within the leadership of our union. Others will guide you. I've been so fortunate, and I know just being a part of the Women's Committee, to reach out and have those connections and those networks. You can't, as Mariam said, you can't do it alone. And we learned that very early on, and we connect with each other. And I've had amazing support, and I will continue to do that for others, to support as best I can. And I think that's the most critical thing, is to network and support each other.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lena. Sylvie, si tu commençais ta carrière au sein du mouvement syndical, quel conseil aimerais-tu recevoir?
Quel conseil? Je pense que ce que j'aimerais recevoir, c'est l'expérience de tout à chacun. Quand on commence, c'est premièrement de se faire confiance, puis c'est sûr que les conseils qu'on peut avoir qui pourraient nous être utiles, c'est de prendre le temps d'écouter parce que chaque personne n'a pas les mêmes besoins. Des fois, on rencontre des gens, puis on pense, on veut bien faire les choses, aller avec la convention collective. On essaye de toutes les connaître par cœur, mais regarde, ça bouge tellement, c'est tellement différent d'une place à l'autre, mais chaque personne a ses propres besoins. Puis des fois, on veut essayer d'aider quelqu'un, puis si on ne prend pas le temps d'écouter c'est quoi ses besoins, on risque peut-être de se tromper dans l'aide qu'on veut y apporter. Fait que je pense que c'est ça. Je pense que c'est d'écouter puis prendre le temps d'avoir de l'empathie pour chaque personne, puis le respect, puis se faire confiance. Je pense que c'est la base.
Bien, merci Sylvie. Fernanda?
An advice that I would appreciate when I started would have been run, keep on running, and don't look back. That would have been great advice because I had no idea what I was getting into. But seriously, you know, as we like to say, these colors don't run, right? So one advice that I would have appreciated in my early days is you can't save everyone. And the other advice I would like would be like, don't take it home with you, right? I mean, we take work with you. I mean, if you have paperwork and that, but don't take it with you. Like, don't let it stop you from sleeping. Don't let it consume you. So that was very hard at the beginning to accept that. So if someone would have explained that and advised me, I would have really appreciated that. But you know, that comes with what Mariam said, and Laurie and Sylvie and Len and everybody. When you first start in this world, the self-doubt is a killer. So you've got to trust yourself, got to trust your instinct that you're doing the very best job that you can, and that's all you can do. That's it.
Thank you.
I wish I would have had all this advice, you know, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're doing it now. We can share with everybody. Thank you, lady.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Too late, right?
Okay, for the next question. Whatever your role is in the union, we know that your involvement goes beyond the traditional 8-hour shift, right? So how do you manage work and life balance? Mariam.
I don't. I think, no, in all honesty, I think that it's quite a myth, but it's also a goal. So we do have a goal to work toward work-life balance, but a lot of things have to happen in order for us to actually achieve that goal. And it isn't an individual act that it requires. We're still in a society that undervalues women's unpaid labor. We haven't socialized what has traditionally been women's roles just yet. And when I mean socialize, I'm talking about that society has the responsibility to help women balance, you know, their work and their private or personal lives. So whether it's childcare, accessible, quality childcare, whether it's elder care, you know, and I think it was Lena who was talking about the sandwich generation, right? So we're taking care of our parents and we're taking care of our children, and other social programs that support families. Well, if we don't have those things readily accessible to us, then pretending like somehow we're going to balance being able to hold jobs and being able to take care of our families in sort of in a way that is meaningful is actually a myth, right? So but then I go back to saying it's kind of a myth to think that we've got that, but it's truly a goal. And what is really important is that our movement and our unions are going to continue to work towards that goal.
Thank you very much, Mariam. Lena.
Yeah, I still struggle with that every day. I'm fortunate to have an incredible support system though at home, which really helps. My husband is fantastic. It supported me, like I said, in every endeavor I've done. He helps me around the house and always helped with the kids. He is not the father of my children, but he's surely stepped into that role and helped me whenever I couldn't be here, he was there. And I mean, the children have incredible father and stepmother as well. So I've had that support as well. They've also helped with that. And I guess the true balance really for me comes with accepting the non-traditional days as work days and balancing my time within and around them. So I might get 4 hours on a Monday to myself where I can maybe go get my hair done and not feel guilty about it. I for years felt guilty about it. I think a lot of women do. We feel guilty when we take time for ourselves, and we have to stop doing that. That's it for me.
Thank you, Lena.
Okay, I will say this balance or the dream of it, I think it's a journey and it's a learning process, right? And I mean, I had to learn that I couldn't be in two places at the same time. I am also very, very lucky to have my dog right here, to be part of you know, a home life that supports what I do. But I'm not going to lie, it was difficult at the beginning because they were accustomed to have everything done and they know that I'm always there. And then, you know, no. So I tell everyone, if it's not an emergency, don't call me. If it's an emergency, call 911. The balance is a journey, and I think I'm pretty much there. So it is like this. You can be in two places at the same time. Pick the one you can be, do your very best there, and move on to the next one eventually.
So my last question is a one-word answer question. In one word only, tell us your superpower. What is your superpower?
Resilience.
Confidence.
Fearlessness.
Le respect.
Persistence.
Thank you, sisters. Teamsters Canada is proud to have among its ranks women like you, women of heart, women of action, who I'm sure are an inspiration and a role model for other women in our organization. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Stay safe.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye,
Stay
everybody.
safe. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
There are many ways for women to get involved in the movement and make their voices heard, make a difference. It may not be your goal to become a shop steward or a business agent, but attending meetings, participating in union activities, and inviting your coworkers to participate is being an activist, a leader. Each and every one of you make a difference and make our union stronger.